The war for Hel Ra had not ended with a triumphant conquest, but with a bitter, humiliating retreat. Mannimarco, the king of worms, had learned a costly lesson. A horde of shambling dead, however numerous, could be broken by disciplined steel and unwavering men-at-arms. Back within the grim confines of his fortress in Thunder Falls, he was forced to reckon with the consequences. A deep, festering wound that mirrored the blow to his pride. And we are in Mannimarco's chambers, his face sick and pale, his breathing shallow. The air is thick with the scent of sickness and failed remedies, and a physician fusses over a bandage on Mannimarco's limbs. His hands are trembling. In the chaotic aftermath of the battle, Mannimarco had sustained many injuries, and in the days that followed, it had only worsened. The wounds had become infected, a vile corruption that his own dark energies could not purge at the time. His court physician was more practiced in flattery than in healing, and proved utterly inept. And each new poultice, each chanted ward, seemed to only aggravate the affliction. You fail me. Again? The rot spreads. Are you actively trying to kill me? Or is your incompetence simply that profound? My lord, the humors are unbalanced. I assure you, my lord. I'm doing all... Ah! Be gone! Find me a new physician, someone with actual skill, and not a purveyor of scented mud and empty platitudes. Now! Even within the births of his own kin and the extensions of his house, Mannimarco was stuck to languish. News from the outside world filtered in, and that brought along with his spies. The Lord of Jahanneth, the architect of his defeat, had later succumbed to wounds sustained in the final struggle. But any hope that his death would weaken the house was quickly dashed. His successor was his lady widow. The Lady Jahanneth was a woman known for her sharp mind and unyielding will. And certainly the protective alliance over Hel Ra was not broken, and was maintained to a marriage tie between the chieftain and the ruler of that country. The obstacle was not removed, but it had merely changed its face. The alliance holds firm. A woman. So the old wolf is replaced by the she-wolf. And the chain remains unbroken. Open warfare. It has failed me. I must rethink the strength of my armies. But if I cannot break them on the field, then I will sever the head of the snake in its den. And in his weakened state, the new strategy began to coil in Mannimarco's mind. Open war was costly and uncertain. A single decisive act of subterfuge, however, could achieve what his hordes could not. Eliminating the Lady of Jahanneth, the house and the very lands itself would be thrown into chaos, and the marriage alliance tying them to Hel Ra would be meaningless, and he could achieve through murder what he had failed to win through war. Send for my spy master. I want to know everything about House Jahanneth. Their habits, gods, confidants, all secrets and vulnerabilities. This war is not over. It has just moved into the shadows. While one plot began to take shape, the more immediate crisis of his own mortality remained, and in the feverish desperation, Mannimarco contemplated a more drastic solution to his decay. He pontificated the possibility of lichdom or immortality. These things he craved greatly, but they were perilous. He had been close before, but his reserves of spiritual energy are now nearly sufficient. And maybe, just maybe, he could force the transformation. And as we begin, Mannimarco drives himself into the depths of his chamber and drags himself to a ritual circle and begins his incantations. But it was a terrible decision. It was born of arrogance and agony. The little energy that he possessed was not enough. His body was too weak. His spiritual reserves were depleted from sickness and the effects of this festering wound. The energies he sought to command were out of his reach, and it left him drained and closer to death than ever. So this is how it ends. Undone by a festering wound and my own affliction. But alas, the King of Worms was not fated to meet his end. His servants, spurred by the terror of his wrath, had scoured the lands for a new healer, and they found one. A mage of considerable talent, known for her skills in restorative magics. There was one complication. She was a zealous follower of the divines, and despised Mannimarco and his cult with every fiber of her being. And yet, she was his only hope. In the shadow recesses of his fortress, Lord Mannimarco began the slow, arduous process of recovery. The new physician was a mage of considerable skill. Her methods were efficient, and her knowledge of the restorative arts profound. Yet her every touch, her every action, every muttered incantation was tinged with a palpable disdain for her patient. Mannimarco in turn endured her ministrations with a chilling impassivity. His own contempt for her piety masked by the pragmatic need for her skill. His body might be broken, but his formidable intellect remained untouched, already weaving new and darker tapestries for revenge. One might question how Mannimarco was able to convince this devout follower of the divines to even consider treating him of his afflictions. I would lead you to the heart of the matter, of course. Mannimarco leveraged the dark arts, even when being in close proximity with death. That would not stop Mannimarco's fears. He was a master of convincing people and bending them to his way. Through the act of mind manipulation, he, of course, convinced her it was in her best interest to treat Mannimarco. However, he did not have enough strength to completely torch her brain, but rather just enough to get her to treat him. And here now we are in the chamber of the physician. The infection recedes, Lord Mannimarco, but the damage to the tissues is extensive, and you will require many more weeks of treatment before you regain even a semblance of your former strength. Your concern is touching, healer. Rest assured, my current exertions are primary of the mind, and for that I require a different kind of specialist. Lyra finishes her work, physician, and retreats. And as she retreats and leaves, Mannimarco's spy master slips in. My lord, you summoned me. Your recovery proceeds adequately. The healer, for all her righteousness, is competent. And now to the matter of Lady Johanneth. Direct assaults. A plot on her would be satisfying, but it is complicated. And her guards is very high, and especially her suspicion of me would be great at this time. Indeed, my lord. An attempt on the lady would be perilous, but we could instead target the alliance that they have with Hel Ra, the alliance cemented through marriage, through the Lord. The lesser lord of Hel Ra, yes. I think he will be an easier target, more of a political necessity to the Johanneths than a power. Precisely, my lord. He leads Hel Ra, but his true significance is the knot he ties between his country and that house. If that knot were to be undone, then a chain broken, and it would collapse their alliance. The lady would be more vulnerable. Yes. Our first strike will not be against the she-wolf, but against Hel Ra. Sever the alliance, and when she is weakened, we shall deal with her. And thus the plot was cemented, and now the target, of course, was the Lord of Hel Ra. And Mannimarco, long from his sick bed, began to orchestrate the scheme and dispatch his agents along the softer target of Hel Ra's court. Many bribes and whispers about the vulnerabilities of this house and their routines were carefully cataloged. And Mannimarco, he was physically constrained still, but he was not idle. He was merely conserving his magicka for crucial interventions when necessary. There were many whispers of his powers of mind bending and converting people to his will. And now we see ourselves as Mannimarco is speaking with his spy master along the distant image. But I would be deigned to not mention that Mannimarco also has the ability to harvest souls in exchange for gaining his own magicka capabilities. Malvis, my spy master, are our agents in place? And is our spinted prepared? All proceeds as you have indeed, my lord. The chances of success are favorable. Favorable is not sufficient, my spy master. It must be absolute. This alliance is a festering wound upon my spine, and now we must cauterize it and send his death back to me. A message that no wall or alliance will shield itself from me. And with the air thick, the plot against the Lord of Hel Ra was extremely successful, and he was brought to the doors of oblivion, and his death would soon strike true. The dark tendrils of Mannimarco's influence was long-reaching. Word arrived from Hel Ra, along by a breathless, terrified messenger, and confirmed by his own agents that Hel Ra, the Lord, was dead. The plot had succeeded just as the King of Worms had designed, and now, with their land severed, the country was in disarray, and Mannimarco could strike on Hel Ra whenever he so choose without much resistance. But now we push on to perhaps one of the final reports of Mannimarco being healed from his plight. Your physical form is restored, my lord. The wounds is healed. What you choose to do with this renewed lease on life is beyond my purview. My task here is done. Your skill is undeniable, healer. You have served your purpose. You may depart Thunder Falls, or you may choose to stay and witness the dawn of a new age. The choice, as they say, is yours. The physician, of course, gives a curt and defiant nod, clearly choosing the former. Little does she know she will be weaving and woven right back into her place the next time she falls asleep. Now Mannimarco turns his attention to a bowl where an image confirms the chaos in Hel Ra. The first chain is broken. The Maha Kaldara will mourn, and Kandala will worry. But Lady Johanna's anxieties can wait. I have endured the frailties of the flesh for the last time, and along with that will be her time breathing her last. With his body whole once more, and a significant political victory secured, Mannimarco's desire for immortality, for a state beyond the reach of injury and disease, had roared to the forefront. He had long studied the lore of lichdom, the ultimate apotheosis for a necromancer. He believed himself to be on the cusp, needing only a little more energy to finally attempt the transformation. And now Mannimarco is in a darker chamber as he seeks to draw power. The ritual of a lich transformation was an undertaking of terrifying complexities and immense danger. It required vast arcane power and an iron will to master life and death and undeath, bending them to reshape one's own very existence. Mannimarco was confident in his restored vitality and, of course, in preparation. He did not believe in luck, rather that the prepared get the events that they need. He stepped into the heart of his glowing rune-etched circle. He poured his will, his accumulated knowledge, and every erg of his spiritual energy into the workings. The air crackled and the shadows danced with malevolent glee, and for a moment it seemed as though the veil between the worlds itself was tearing. Mannimarco felt the power surge, the promise tantalizingly close. No! It is out of reach! The final step. I cannot grasp it! The ritual collapsed. The immense power he had gathered dissipated it violently, and Mannimarco was drained, gasping and reeling from the psychic backlash. He had poured so much of himself into this attempt, believing he was ready, yet immortality eluded him once again. The dance of the energies proved way too complex, and the final ascension just beyond his current mastery. Failed? After all this? My forever bound to this decaying shell? to face death like any common mortal. Of course, his death was a profound blow. His confidence was shaken, and maybe the belief that he would live forever could have dissipated. The path to eternal life was more treacherous and steeper than even he could fully comprehend. And for now, the mantle of lichdom was a distant, mocking aspiration. But even in that aspiration of failure, Mannimarco sipped on the tears of joy as he watches as the Maha of Kardala reaves in her own weakness. But alas, even in clearing one threat, still more rise. The ties to greater religions and connections still glow. And now another she-wolf has risen to take her place. Mannimarco is now faced and fraught with more conflict as time passes on, and he has still not attained the power that he needs to survive. It will take more and more and more before he could ascend his way to true dominance.